The last film that I made for the Melton Division, I talked to you about the job that I was doing here at the Foreign Office with Mr. Eden, and I explained that the pressure of work here was so great, because Foreign Affairs never let up even on a Sunday, nor for that matter to parliamentary questions, that I found it impossible to get down to my constituency as often as I should like. Well, I'm afraid that the pressure of work has, if anything, increased rather than decreased since I was last talking to you on the film, and for those reasons I thought I'd better make another film to bring you generally up to date. One of the difficulties about making this sort of film is that whatever you talk about has a habit of becoming outdated about a fortnight after you've talked about it. So perhaps to some of you who will be seeing this film, you will begin to wonder, well, why did he say that on that occasion? Because the situation is now completely different. The other difficulty, of course, is fitting in the making of the film, because I have at the very moment in the waiting room outside the Yugoslav ambassador who wants to come and talk about Trieste. In half an hour's time, the Egyptian wants to come and talk about the Suez Canal. And then a little bit later in the morning, there'll be the Indian High Commissioner coming along to talk about Korea. So you can see the sort of pressure under which we have to work here, in addition to getting through the ordinary routine. Let me first of all say a word about our affairs at home, and about our financial situation in particular. You remember that when we took office 2 years ago, we found the finances of the country in a pretty bad mess. The country was buying from abroad far more than we could possibly earn with our exports, and had we gone on in this way, running down our few precious savings, we should have been bankrupt and hungry and with a vast number of unemployed. It's really no exaggeration to put it as high as that. Well, naturally, we had to get down to some pretty heavy rescue work on the financial front. And I'm glad to be able to say that after 2 years of Mr. Butler's administration at the Treasury, we are really in very much better shape now than we have been at any stage since the beginning of the last World War. As a result, we are beginning to pay our way, we are earning our own living in the world, and things on the whole look a great deal brighter, even though at the same time we've had to forego a lot of the American aid which was forthcoming in the days of the last government. Now a word about housing. You'll remember that before we took office, the socialists said that it was a fraud to suggest that we or any other government could build 300,000 houses a year. Well, we're well on the road to building 300,000 houses a year. And I think that you will find that before this government has left office, at any rate, the back of the housing problem will have been broken. I will make no more prophecies than that. But at any rate, we shall have made a good start in getting rid of this hideous and formidable problem. Now let me talk for a moment about foreign affairs, with which I'm particularly concerned here. Our job, of course, is to try and get peace and at the same time to protect British interests. And of course those two aims are inevitably complementary. You cannot protect British interests and further British interests abroad unless you have peaceful conditions in which to do it. Now the Far East. We've got an armistice in Korea. And we hope very much that that armistice will lead to a political conference at which first of all the Korean problem will be settled, and then perhaps there will be a general settlement throughout the Far East. Now you may think that all this is very far away, and not so much our concern perhaps as that of the Americans. But let me remind you, we have a very big stake indeed in that part of the world. In Malaya, which alone throughout the years since the war has earned for the sterling area, that is the area within which we operate financially in the world, Malaya has earned more dollars and hard currency than any other single member of the sterling area, including ourselves. all our industry. So you can see that if we're going to get what we want, we're going to get the development of all our resources in that part of the world to the maximum advantage, we must have peaceful conditions in which to do it. Well, that is what we're trying to get. Now, a word about Europe. The supreme event, as Sir Winston Churchill called it, in Russia, indeed in the world since the war, has been the death of Stalin and the advent of a new administration, a new regime in the Soviet Union. Now, they've made a lot of gestures. Those gestures don't amount to very much up to date. They certainly haven't cost the Russians very much. It may be that they want those gestures to lead on to something really big, a real peace settlement. Your guess is as good as mine, whether their real fundamental aims, basic strategy have changed in any way as a result of Stalin dying. My personal belief is that their fundamental aims haven't changed. But I still believe that it may be possible to make some kind of local agreements to reduce the tension in some parts of the world, to take the heat out of some of the situations that we've been trying to cope with ever since the last war ended. Well, we shall certainly go ahead with that aim in view. And that is one of the reasons why we have invited the Russians to come and talk to us in Switzerland on, as it were, neutral ground about the problem of Germany, which has always been and still is today the central problem of Europe, and therefore the central problem upon which the whole question of world peace and a world settlement depends. We hope that the Russians will accept our invitation. By the time some of you see this film, they will have either accepted or rejected it. But I'm convinced of this, that if they accept it, and if they come to that conference table ready to talk about the future of Germany as a free country, unfettered by the shackles of Russian communism, then a settlement can be arrived at. But if they come determined to hold on to what they've gained, to that part of the German nation that they have occupied and made a part of their own empire, well, then no agreement can possibly be arrived at. Well, now, to sum up, what we're trying to do is to get recovery at home and peace abroad. I think that we can feel assured that in the first 2 years of Conservative government, the prospect of achieving these two inevitably complementary aims have been greatly increased and greatly improved.